materials needed to successfully perform the project protein extraction with egg are the following: egg, cold water, spoon, fork, and bowl. And now, I will be performing the procedure. The first step is to crack one egg and separate the egg white from the yolk. Set aside while preparing for the second setup. In a bowl, put a cup of cold water. Add the egg white to the cold water and gently stir it for 5 minutes. I immediately noticed the formation of white particles moving in the motion of the water after 2 to 3 minutes of stirring. Stirring it gently for 5 minutes, many white particles seem to have spiraled with the water, but there are still parts of the egg white which don't spread out to form white particles, which is the protein. And I conclude that it may be due to the temperature of the water, because it is determined that the protein molecules expand slightly with increasing temperature, and since I use cold water, the expansion of the protein in the egg white is partially achieved.
Hi, I'm Daniela Marie A. Mateo and I'm going to extract protein from fresh milk. These are the materials needed. First, pour 200 ml of fresh milk in a jar. But before that, open the fresh milk using a scissor. Using a measuring cup, measure the exact amount of fresh milk needed, which is 200 ml. Then pour the 200 ml fresh milk in the jar. Add a teaspoon of salt and mix it gently. Again, using a measuring cup, measure the exact amount of cold water needed, which is 200 ml. Then pour the 200 ml cold water in the jar. After pouring 200 ml of cold water, I observed that the fresh milk became watery and colder. I also witnessed few white particles floating on the side of the jar. Results after 24 hours. I observed that there are compact mass or lumpy white particles floating on top of the fresh milk. There are also white lumps and tiny bubbles on the sides.
Hello everyone! I'm Aladjadaya Gazian of PSMLS 2A. These are the materials in completing the experiment. The task given to me is task number 3 entitled Project Protein Extraction with Milk of Model number 5. The first step based on the procedure is to gently heat 200 ml of fresh milk in a pot until thoroughly warm. After heating the milk, transfer it to a jar or a glass container. The third step is to add 100 ml of cold water and mix it gently. After mixing, the last step is to observe it for 30 minutes. The results of my observations are: number 1, at the first 10 minutes of the solution, there is a formation of a thick white particle at the side surface of the solution. Then as time goes by, the thick white formation increases in number. Lastly, as it reached 30 minutes, the thick white formation at the side became more visible. This thick white formation is considered as the protein of the milk.
Before we start the laboratory experiment, make sure to wear personal protective equipment and clean the area. Here are the materials needed for the experiment: 1 cup all-purpose flour, 5 teaspoons of salt, 100 ml water, and tap or running water for washing the dough later on. To start the experiment, I mixed 1 cup of all-purpose flour with 100 ml of water in a flat container. I mixed them until they stick together and become a dough. Then I added 5 teaspoons of salt, then knead it until the salt is mixed up with the dough. Next, I went to the kitchen. In the sink, I used a big bowl and a strainer on top of it. I put the dough on the strainer and opened the faucet to wash the dough with running water. As I wash the dough, the water becomes white in color and I observed that the dough started to shrink. Some bits of the dough were being separated as I massaged it in the strainer, but later on it became as one as I washed it. When the water became clearer and clearer, the dough shrinked more. I stopped massaging the dough when I saw the water becomes clear. I saw how intact and stretchy the final product after washing the dough. This is the gluten of the dough. I stretched it first to see what will happen and tried to inflate it with a straw immediately, but I failed. I tried to inflate it again after 2 to 3 minutes of letting it rest for a bit, and I successfully inflated the gluten.
First, I cracked the egg using a fork. It's important to use an egg stored in room temperature for this experiment. I then separated the egg white from the egg yolk and put the yolk in a separate bowl. Using measuring spoons, I added 2 teaspoons of yolk back into the white. Finally, I beat the egg using a whisk. I did this continuously until it eventually displayed a fluffy consistency with stiff peaks. This is what it looked like after whisking for 6 minutes. And this for 10 minutes. I stopped whisking after reaching the desired consistency. This consistency took approximately 23 minutes to achieve.